Die Hard is a classic action thriller film directed by John McClane and released in 1988. The film stars Bruce Willis as John McClane, a New York City cop who finds himself trapped in a Los Angeles high-rise office building during a terrorist attack. With no outside help and armed only with his wits and his police training, McClane must battle a team of heavily armed and highly trained terrorists to save his wife and the other hostages. The film begins with McClane arriving in Los Angeles on Christmas Eve to visit his estranged wife, Holly Gennaro, Bonnie Bedelia, who works for the Nakatomi Corporation. We get to know John McClane as a tough, wisecracking police officer trying to reconcile with his estranged wife. We also get to meet Holly, who is a strong and independent career woman. McClane is picked up at the airport by a limo driver named Argyle Devereaux White, and the two men strike up a friendly conversation as they drive to Nakatomi Plaza, where Holly works. When McClane arrives at the building, he is greeted by Holly's boss, Joe Takagi, James Shigeta, and taken up to the company's Christmas party on the 30th floor. While McClane is changing his clothes in a restroom, a group of heavily armed terrorists led by the charismatic Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman, takes over the building, killing anyone who gets in their way and taking the partygoers hostage. McClane manages to avoid capture and conceal himself, realizing that he is the only one who can stop the terrorists and save his wife and the other hostages. Using his police training and knowledge of the building's layout, he picks off the terrorists one by one, causing chaos and confusion among their ranks. We see McClane trying to communicate with the outside world, but his efforts are thwarted by the terrorists. He manages to send out a distress signal to the police, but they dismiss it as a prank call. McClane, realizing that he is the only one who can save the hostages, decides to take matters into his own hands. He starts sabotaging the terrorists' plan and killing them one by one, all while trying to avoid getting caught. He also manages to make contact with a police officer named Al Powell, Reginald VelJohnson, who becomes his ally and confidant. Meanwhile, outside the building, the LAPD and the FBI are trying to figure out how to deal with the situation. McClane manages to establish contact with a police officer named Al Powell, Reginald VelJohnson, who becomes his ally and confidant throughout the ordeal. As the night wears on, McClane continues to fight the terrorists, using his resourcefulness and his willingness to take risks to keep them off balance. He also has several close calls, including a dramatic scene in which he jumps off the roof of the building with a fire hose tied around his waist, barely avoiding falling to his death. As McClane makes his way through the building, he begins to piece together the terrorists' plans. They are not just thieves, as he originally thought, but are actually a group of highly organized and well-funded terrorists who have come to steal $640 million in bearer bonds stored in the Nakatomi Corporation's vault. The climax of the movie takes place when McClane and Gruber finally come face to face. Gruber reveals that his plan was not just about stealing the bearer bonds, but about creating a distraction that would allow them to escape undetected. McClane manages to outsmart Gruber and his remaining team, killing them in a final showdown. The movie ends with McClane being reunited with his wife and the hostages being freed. The police and the FBI finally arrive on the scene. Overall, Die Hard is a classic action movie that features a great central performance from Bruce Willis as John McClane. The movie has all the elements of a great action film: a relatable hero, a memorable villain, high stakes, and thrilling action sequences. It has become a cult classic over the years and remains a beloved movie for action fans around the world.